Tonight I've got to talk about, continue my discussion of Charles Darwin. The thing about Charles Darwin is, he wrote his book, where he wrote the works he wrote in the early 19th century, and the early 19th century, especially with the intellectual climate of abolitionism. Abolitionism is very important. Anyone who's seen the movie Amazing Grace or recent films about the American Civil War, I know a lot of them come out, but abolitionism and all the early 19th century, there was many nascent revolutionary movements, like the riots in Paris that figure in Les Miserables, Victor Hugo's novel. Was about, I think, the 1830 revolution in Paris. But this is an example of abolitionism and the movement for revolutionary change that swept the world in the early 19th century, at least, was in this context. Charles Darwin comes along. The question with Darwin was he just trying to establish some kind of pseudo-scientific demonstration of the inferiority of non-European races? Which is important, because if you could legally, because so many slaves were mounting legal challenges, not just in America, so many slave groups like in Haiti and other places were mounting legal challenges to slavery. Redefining a non-white person as an animal it's very simple. It's a legal strategy. It's a fairly simple legal strategy. If they're not human, then they're not citizens. If they're not citizens, they're not party to a constitution. If they're not party to the constitution, they have no protections in law. So they have as much right as animals. So who cares if they are mistreated or owned like chattel? Anyway, there's a lot of silly things in Darwin that actually became quite popular until recently. And I've actually had in the past I've had dealings and exposure with the the official government psychiatric mental health system. And many years ago, I just noticed the way these people operated, and I began to wonder, because I'd noticed that a great deal of a psychiatric diagnosis seems to be based on the appearance of someone's hair. And turns out that Charles Darwin had a lot to say about the appearance of the hair. I mean, about the appearance of the hair, whether it was like bristling and staring. He had this, seemed to have this subtext going on of an animal's, like a dog's hackles rising, or certain animals' hair rising on points of its body in response to alarm, and Darwin says that you can judge crazy people by the fact that their hair is disheveled and raised. And now it's so, to encounter this actually in Darwin, having seen it in the psychiatric world, is surprising. But Darwin goes on to talk about how he believes that native tribes, to contrast Europeans with native tribes, and he thought that native tribes had less control of their bowels when in positions of danger. Now this has become a real cliche over the past 200 years of the brave Englishman versus the scared, witless natives. In 1,000 books and films, you have this idea of an intrepid explorer going through the jungle, being followed by a train of native porters with stuff on their heads, the supplies on their head, balanced on their head, and there'd be a noise in the jungle and a sound, and everything would fall silent, and all the natives would look at each other and go, "Haba jabba, haba jabba jabba," and this rumor would run like wildfire down the line of the porters, and they would go, "Haba jabba jabba," and then they will chuck down their packages on the ground and run away into the bush. But the Englishman would stand firm with his elephant gun, unmoved, and he would wait with steely courage for the tiger or lion or whatever to come to attack, and he would stand bravely and discharge his weapon in the face of the creature. Now this idea that native tribes were just bigger scaredy cats than stern Englishmen. It's persisted in literature. George Orwell wrote that story, shooting an elephant, but it was satirical. But even Sigmund Freud went on to distinguish certain personality types of humans, whether they were anal retentive or anal expulsive. And there's this Eurocentric, vain, silly mythology underlying it that in the face of danger non-white Europeans will just poo their pants and run away, but the European will control himself and sternly face the danger. I mean, where to start with nonsense like that? This is Darwin. People say we know the Bible's wrong because we know Darwin is right, but what was he right about? I mean, Darwin said many just dead wrong things that are dead wrong. Things were just hearsay, wild stories, hubris, nonsense, deluded vanity. So I don't understand how people can say that Darwin was right.